A Filipino police colonel was among the fatalities in the deadly mid-air collision between an American Airlines jetliner and a United States Army helicopter over Washington, D.C., according to the Philippine National Police. In a statement on Friday, January 31, the PNP discloses that a Filipino police identified as Police Colonel Pergentino N. Malabed, Chief of the Supply Management Division, was among those who died in the mid-air collision. Malabed was on board the American Airlines flight that collided with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night, January 29. The PNP says Malabed was on official travel at the time of the incident. In a briefing on the same day, PNP Public Information Office Chief Colonel Randolph Tuanyo says that Malabed was granted Foreign Travel Authority and left for India on January 22 to inspect the armored vests that the PNP Directorate for Logistics bought. Tuanyo says Malabed then traveled to US to visit the company that owned the vests to test them out.
So from India, papunta po siya ng Kansas, papunta ng Washington para po mag-courtesy call or exit call kay Colonel Moises Villaseram po, yung ating pong pulis attaché PNP po doon.
Tuanyo adds that Malabed was traveling with a police non-commissioned officer and a non-uniformed personnel, but Malabed set out to visit the country's police attaché in Washington, D.C. alone. Tuanyo further says that the police force is already helping the wife of Malabed to go to the U.S. The commercial jetliner was approaching Reagan National Airport when it figured in the mishap with a U.S. Army helicopter. According to American Airlines, there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members aboard the jetliner, while a U.S. Army official said that 3 soldiers were aboard the helicopter. At a White House press conference, U.S. President Donald Trump said no one survived from the incident. Citing a report from Jaime Ramon Torre Escalon Jr., Deputy Chief of Mission at the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., Tuanyo says 30 bodies have been recovered. President Bongbong Marcos admits that he is very disturbed by the arrest of 5 suspected Chinese spies who allegedly set up high-resolution solar-powered cameras pointed at the waters of Palawan, where Coast Guard vessels pass on their way to the West Philippine Sea. In an interview on Friday, January 31, Marcos says the investigative services is still developing more information on the activities done by the suspected Chinese spies.
That's why we arrested them, because of course we are very disturbed by anyone conducting such espionage operations against our military. And the investigative services are still developing more information to see exactly what these 5 have been what operations they have been doing while they've been here in the Philippines. Dahil yung iba matagal nang nandito, nakapangasawa na ng mga Pilipina. At sleeper talaga, sleeper.
Marcos adds that the Philippines has had no official discussion with China yet regarding the suspected Chinese spies. Marcos further says that he hopes to speak with the arrested spies to determine if there are more of them in other parts of the country.
Kailangan, kung sakal, baka naman, pagka nakausap natin sila, masabi sa atin, baka meron pang mga iba na maaari nating puntahan at pag-explaining kung ano yung kanilang ginagawa.
On Thursday, January 30, the National Bureau of Investigation presented the 5 alleged Chinese spies who were purportedly monitoring Philippine Coast Guard and Philippine Navy activities in Palawan in their operations in the West Philippine Sea. President Bongbong Marcos is rejecting the challenge of former Executive Secretary Victor Rodriguez for him to undergo a hair follicle drug test. Rodriguez's call to Marcos is based on the constitutional principle that public office is a public trust. But Marcos, in an interview on Friday, January 31, says he does not need to undergo the hair follicle drug test because it has nothing to do with public trust.
No. Why should I do that? That's what they say, public trust, public office, public has nothing to do with a follicle test, please. There's wala namang connection yung sinasabi niya. He's always had that weakness every time when he was still working for me. If he believed in what he was saying, why did he work for me?
In April 2024, Rodriguez had also urged Marcos to undergo a hair follicle drug test amid allegations that he was a drug user. Meanwhile, in January 2024, former President Rodrigo Duterte also made strong allegations against Marcos, accusing him of being a drug addict. Duterte added that Marcos was allegedly once on the watch list of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. Marcos, after Duterte's statement, released a medical certification proving there is no trace of drug abuse from his examination. Akbayan Party List Representative Percival Sendanya appeals to fellow lawmakers to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte, stressing they should not mind their votes but mind the good of the country ahead of the 2025 midterm elections. During the rally calling for the impeachment of Duterte at the People Power Monument in EDSA on Friday, January 31, Sendanya says the impeachment complaints have just sat at the House of Representatives for nearly 2 months now.
Halos 2 buwan nang natutulog ang impeachment complaint. Narito ngayon ang ating mga mamamayan, tinatanong ang Kongreso, anong petsa na? Alam natin malapit na ang eleksyon, pero sa dulo, huwag nating isipin yung bilang ng boto, ang isipin natin ay kapakanan ng ating sambayanan.
Sendanya endorsed the first impeachment complaint against Duterte filed last December 2 by civil society organizations. 2 more cases against the Vice President were filed later that month. The Vice President faces allegations of misuse of public funds by her office and the Department of Education when she was still its chief. According to Sendanya, their group did not lack in asking for updates, following up with the Office of the Secretary General to act on the complaints. But Sendanya says they are getting different answers until now. Various political parties and sectoral groups gathered at the People Power Monument on Friday morning, urging the House to act on the complaints against the Vice President. The complainants behind all 3 cases made a joint appearance last January 16, stressing to Congress that impeaching Duterte was a moral obligation. The Department of Agriculture may declare a food security emergency for rice by Tuesday next week, February 4, according to the agency's top official. In an interview on Friday, January 31, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel Jr. says his office received the official copy of the National Price Coordinating Council's resolution recommending the emergency declaration. Laurel says the Department of Agriculture has yet to review the National Price Coordinating Council's resolution thoroughly. According to Laurel, the declaration of National Food Security Emergency will reduce the volume of stock stored in warehouses. Laurel says that releasing 300,000 metric tons of rice to consumers will soften the market, and prices of rice are expected to go down. The Department of Agriculture has been pushing for the declaration of a food security emergency to alleviate retail prices of rice, a staple Filipino food. Once the declaration is made, stocks from the National Food Authority will be sold to government agencies and local government units at 36 pesos per kilogram and to consumers at 38 pesos per kilogram. The Department of Agriculture is authorized by the amended rice tarification law to declare a food security emergency on rice in case of a supply shortage or extraordinary increase in rice prices. Every registered Filipino voter will receive a voter information sheet as a guide for the 2025 elections, according to the Commission on Elections. In an interview on Friday, January 31, Comelec Chairman George Garcia says that Comelec will be able to distribute more than 68 million voter information sheet nationwide. According to Garcia, the voter information sheet is a 4-page translated guide containing the voter's name, the number and location of their polling precincts, instructions on how to vote, and other election reminders. The voter information sheet also contains the names of the national and local candidates. Garcia notes that the voter information sheet can be used as a código for voters to have a swift voting process. Garcia also says he has directed the local Comelec officers that no barangay officials or local government officers shall distribute the voter information sheet to the voters. Instead, Garcia says they will hire emergency workers to distribute the voter information sheet nationwide. The Comelec will start printing the voter information sheet on Sunday, February 2 and will run from February to March. The poll body eyes the distribution of the voter information sheet nationwide by April.